All right, guys. So we had a few interesting things going on this week. Um, I do want to start off with the whole issues that we had earlier in the week. It started on Tuesday, just about the time we were, going live on the show when watch parties started popping up. Political watch parties, no place on our group. We set that tone immediately with that when we first started these things. Dave and I, we both messaged. We reached out to the people who supposedly posted them. It turns out that they were hacked. Hey, Mike Bohr. So it turns out that they were hacked. And apparently it kept happening. Even after they had changed their passwords, it still ended up happening. So it's not their fault. Don't hold them in bad standing. This is something that we had found that it's happening in other groups as well, that from other people. We believe it's happening when somebody sends you a message on Messenger and you open a file. Sometimes it attacks your Facebook account and attaches it to yourself that way. So, excuse me. I would say be careful with what people send you in files, and if you don't know them, don't open it. But anyway, regardless, if anything pops up and you guys see it, just report it. Click the report button, and one of the admins, myself or any of the other ones that we have, they will end up checking it out and deleting it and taking it down like we did this week on 2 or 3 occasions. Sorry, I'm looking at myself in the camera here, and it's damn. I can't believe I haven't broken the lens yet. Anyway, so a couple things going on. How about Christian Craig and getting that doping charge turned over? That's pretty crazy. He had to go all the way to Switzerland to get that thing turned over and have his hearing. From what I read, it had everything to do with the amount of time it took them to notify him. I guess he had results tested from around Daytona in 2018, and it took him almost a whole year before they actually notified him. And then they said it was like 11 months later, he had to try to produce a sample of the energy drink that he had been drinking. That's just insane. It's absolutely insane. There's no place for that bullshit in our racing. They need to, I guess they're bringing the testing back overseas. Hopefully they can get it all sorted out, because, I mean, it is, yes, maybe there was stuff in some of these guys' samples, but it's pretty much blown careers down. Look at Brock. It's be interesting to see how Brock Tickle does when he gets back after his deal is up. But if you guys, anybody wants to come on and talk about that stuff, let me know. Send me a private message with your phone number or something like that, and we can try to give you a call and bring you on with me, and we can talk about it on the show here. I know in a few minutes I'm going to give John Levesque a buzz, and we're going to talk a little bit about anything that's going on up at Ronnie's. Oh yes, yeah, John, that is an awesome. The 10-day motorsports challenge. I would imagine almost everybody on here either has been nominated or they see it. My feed is absolutely blown up on my personal feed. It is so cool to see these pictures and to see things going on. I mean, and it's just all over, pictures from all years, all people. It's fantastic. Everybody's getting tagged in it, and everybody's pretty much just participating. I know I tagged Dave early on, and he hesitated. He hemmed and hawed for a few days, but he finally started posting some pictures, and he's already got people commenting on how cool they are. It's incredible. I mean, you see what some of you guys have. That's how our whole group, Old Men That Used to Race, started, was on pictures like that. But this motorsports challenge is really bringing them out. I mean, you're really searching through your files and finding some of the cool stuff to get up there. And I got to say, it's just seeing what you guys got is great. And it does say, don't explain it in the picture. It doesn't say anything about not explaining stuff in the comments below. It's great to see some of the comments and some of the stories that go along with it. It's crazy. Oh, John, why does the FIM, I mean, unfortunately, a few years ago, I believe it was the AMA and the FIM joined forces to try to create a World Supercross series. So that's why the FIM is involved. But I think it's time to kick them the hell out, because this is just, it's stupid what they're doing to these riders with these doping tests. holding them. I mean, if you're going to do it, that's fine, but notify them right away. Don't screw around with them. All right, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get John on the phone here, and hopefully he'll come out pretty good. I'm trying my microphone tonight, so hopefully it'll pick it up a little bit better. My external mic. Hey, man. Hey, what's going on? How are you, John? Not bad, not bad. What's happening with you?
Typical Friday night.
Yeah, dude, I've seen you in a couple of those motorsports challenge pictures already. We were just talking about that just before I called you.
I put up 2. I'm not sure if I did it right, but
I think
I was supposed to put up 10.
Well, you could do like Poacher. You could put up 412 because he keeps getting nominated over and over and over.
Well, he should. He's an icon.
He is an icon. He is an icon. Well, hey, you know what? You're an icon too. I mean, Tread was mentioning you in our phone interview the other night.
I heard that. That was quite an honor. I mean, I wasn't there long, but he mentioned me, and back a few months ago, Tony mentioned me, and it's quite an honor. And I wish I didn't hide out for so long.
Well, hey, sometimes that happens. Life gets in the way, man. That's what I think it happens to all of us at one point or another, especially when we're racing, except for guys like Tread and Dowdy and KJ, the guys that stayed in it. But there was so many more of us that didn't. We got hurt and we stopped riding, or we just got burned out and didn't want to do it anymore. And it took finding the passion again before we can get back into it.
Yeah, me and you have talked about that. The life happens.
Yep.
And it does. And, about 20 years ago, I had my firstborn, John Pierre, and I gotta be honest with you, that this is a moto that's lasted. It's been 20 years. It hasn't stopped. I don't think it's ever going to stop. So definitely, life does happen. But it relates to the moto world. I mean, it's
absolutely.
You go at it and you charge at it, and you take that throttle and you pin it. And It's been wide open for me for about 20 years, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have the same thing in their lives.
Oh yeah. Well, I think too the other thing is if when you do have kids, if your kids aren't really into it or they don't catch the bug, it pulls you away. I mean, for myself, my 2 kids when they were young, they had the motorcycles. We had everything for them. They had numbers. They were all set to go, but they decided that they didn't want to do it. They wanted to race BMX instead, and we kind of took off with that. And BMX turned into hockey, soccer, baseball, you name it. It turned into everything else but motocross. And I was perfectly fine with that because as long as it was what they wanted to do, that's what I wanted to do.
And I kind of did the same thing. We started with the BMX, and I was hoping the kids would do it, and so I introduced I think it was a PW50 to start, and then a KTM, and according to my wife, I think I pushed them away as much as I put them in it. You know what I mean? Because I just didn't want them to go down the father thing and the parenting thing took out. Came into place, and I didn't want them to get hurt, and I didn't want them to feel what I felt. But
inevitably,
hindsight's 20/20. Sports are just as brutal, and I'm talking about football, baseball, and basketball. Can be just as brutal. But long story short, they chose the sports, and I was all about it.
Oh yeah, and you meet. It's kind of like motocross. I mean, you meet so many cool people when you do it, and the family. Sometimes you have, the relationships, you bond with those people, and it lasts for a lot longer than the kids play sports. And other times you're in and out. I mean, that's one thing that actually I said it was similar to. It's kind of different because motocross seems to be like the bonds that you make in motocross. They seem to last a lifetime as opposed to some of the other stuff that the kids go through. And you know what? Quite honestly, that's actually probably not a bad thing because sometimes the people that you meet when the kids play sports, you really don't want to hang around with all the time.
What I learned was that I learned a lot through the kids, and I learned about myself through the kids. And
Yep.
when I say kids, I have three. So I have one in college, I have one that's a senior in high school, and I have a sophomore in high school. And they're all into sports, and what's really cool is their intensity. I can relate to. I think they got it. I'm going to say out loud they got it from their mom, but I really think they got it from, remind me of myself. And they took it, they do it 110%, and it doesn't matter if they're doing push-ups or doing sprints in the driveway. They're intense, and that's the coolest part, and I relate that back to moto. Everything goes back to moto.
Yep.
If you wanted to be good, you had to ride. You had to ride 5 days a week.
Yep.
And it showed. Whatever you did during the week showed on the weekend.
You got to put in the time and put in the work. And I think that, you're 100% right. It goes for anything that you do, especially when it's athletics related. If you don't put in the time, you're not going to get to play. By the time you get to the high school level, if you haven't done that, you're going to sit in the bench, and that's no fun. It's no fun.
Been on both sides of that. And in motocross, the motto should have been back in the day, and I think this is a BMX motto, and you'll know this when I say it. Nobody sits the bench.
Right. Right.
When you do you line up to the gate, you get your chance.
Yep.
You might not make the main, but you get your chance.
Yep. You know it. And that's the thing is, when you were there, how much, it would piss you off if you had a bad weekend. So you went home and you worked a little bit harder that week, and it's not something you got to feel it yourself, and with the kids, we can try as parents, we can try to tell them until we're blue in the face what they have to do and how they have to work harder. But until they get angry at themselves for performing, not to what they expect, they just won't do it. They just won't do it, and that's cool. That's fine. I don't think that's a bad thing, because that way they can find out what they really like to do and maybe focus on something like that. Unfortunately, now there's so many of these kids that it's video games and inside stuff as opposed to motorcycles, which it's kind of sad. We got to do the best we can to try to keep growing the sport, and with the younger kids not riding, that's we're up against a big wall.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And being in the industry, I have to tell you, selling products to people, there's less and less riders out there. So you have to promote the sport. But at the same level, and I know we're getting off subject of two wheels, but
that's okay.
Team sports are losing numbers astronomically. They can't even field teams anymore because kids are on the phones, on the computers, doing everything but sports. And
right,
the basketball teams that used to have JV teams are now forced to have one team, and then they're co-oping with other teams. But that trickles right down to the moto world, and it's getting smaller and smaller. And I think it really has to do with the handheld electronics, and
yep.
Not to mention that there's so many things kids can do now. They can play one sport all year.
Right.
And it's no different than Tread was talking about it just the other day with you guys. I mean, moto turned into a year-round thing. When I started, it was 9 months.
Right.
And
right.
We were off.
Yep.
We were skiing. We were playing hockey.
Yep. He had a great point when he started talking about, how those guys would go to Florida, and they would spend, 3 or 4 months during the winter, really, in Florida, riding, practicing, training together. So it was almost an unfair advantage. When they got home, they had the confidence and their skills were sharp. They knew that they were going to destroy everybody else when they got back. It was crazy. Yeah. It took us as, regular guys, it took us a good 4, 5, 6 weeks to get back into the flow of things at the beginning of the year. I was thinking about it the other day after that interview with Tread. I would come back, and if I happened to get a good start, I would hold my line and just try to stay out of their way. I wouldn't even, consider trying to get in and mix it up with him because I knew that I had nothing. I think a few weeks in, after some training, it changed a little bit, and that's when you start getting some confidence. You start going with them, but that just goes to the year-round thing. Bill Drollet said he disagrees, and that's cool too. Everything's so expensive, it's unbelievable. No dirt bike should cost $8K. I mean, that's even in the industry. I mean, you know what the invoices are from the manufacturers that they set them to the stores. You had that sale last year on the KXs, and it pretty much turned the whole community upside down because people were like, "What the hell is he doing? How is he doing that? You're selling a 450 for, I don't know, what was it anyway? It was like $8K, right, or less."
Not it was less than that, but I couldn't agree more. The sport definitely is expensive. It certainly isn't the dealers getting rich from it, but it definitely is an expensive sport. But back to the Florida thing, my experience, I didn't experience it like you did with treading the whole group, but I'm going to mention Gene Newmack.
Yes.
Was one of the first ones to start going to Florida, and you know, me and Gene were pretty close in at the end of the season, and the next season would come up, and holy cow!
All of a sudden, he's on the gas.
He rode all winter.
Yeah.
And, John Pierre had his hands full. Like I didn't have my hands full. It was like a game changer.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, it set me back. I worked my way back up, and you know, just like you said, it was weeks to catch back up.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, your confidence is gone because you just haven't had that time on the bike. You know, even if you're in a gym all winter and you're the picture of fitness come springtime, you haven't been on that bike. I mean, he had a good point. Like some of us would just go to like Wareham or the sand pits and we would ride a little bit here and there, but it's not the same as you know, competing every week and being on a gate and staying focused and sharp.
No, I'm on the other end of the state, and we in Western Mass compared to you guys on the Cape or next to the Cape, our riding season was 2 months shorter to begin with.
Yep. Well, even now, you and I were talking, maybe 2 weeks ago, and you said to me, "Holy crap, I got 25 inches of snow at my house right now." And I looked out my window and I'm looking at grass, and I mean, we might be 120 miles apart at best, I would think. So it's like it's crazy what you know, just location can do even in a short distance.
Yeah, and Wareham will be open. I think we were talking today.
Yep.
Probably March, full swing.
They will. I think that Wareham, Jake does a great job of trying to open during the winter. So if he gets a warm weekend, he'll try to open. But the problem, like right now, is it got cold and froze earlier. So even if the track doesn't have snow on it, with the amount of rain that's coming in the next 24 hours and the rest of the temperature swings up and down, it's gonna have massive ruts in it if he tries to open up. He does his best and he tries to combat it, but he needs a good solid 3 or 4 days of no precipitation before he can really think about opening and have a place that, you know, he's not going to have to work his butt off to maintain for the day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool, but.
And going back to the dollar, you know, 450 is $8,000, but I mean, put it in perspective. Back in the day, to have a bike competitive, they were a lot less money then, but things were a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
But when I was riding, we had, even though I had I had Team Green support. I had a good dealership ride, and that wasn't the expensive part. The equipment wasn't the expensive part back then. It was trying to get to the winter series and travel time and get, you know, my father getting time off from work.
Yeah.
Loretta Lynn's, it was a week away. I mean, it was, I don't know, 1,200 miles to get there. It took time and money to travel. traveling was the most expensive part, and I just think everything now is. I think it's all in perspective, but I could be wrong. I think the motorhomes are bigger. I think they're more expensive.
Yeah.
And I think everybody thinks they're. And I can tell you this from the inside. Everybody thinks their kid's the next big.
They do.
Next big thing.
Yep.
And that's okay. That was no different back in the day, but
look
it's an expensive sport, and
look at the
there's a lot of
handful
other
of
things
people
your kids could be doing.
Right. And I mean, look at that. There's only been a handful of people who've been super successful and made money at it. And that's, I'm talking in our area in the Northeast region. But even then, even when you start talking about costs and stuff like that, you think about, my kids played hockey. And I'll use this as an example. So when they played hockey and they started getting older and they started needing more and more new equipment, sticks were like, they were insane to buy, a composite stick. It was, you could spend a couple of $100 easy back then. Skates were out of, it was crazy, and then you had to pay to go into these tournaments and the teams and stuff like that. So from what I was told, even that, when the materials and everything else increased, it just went crazy with pricing. I can distinctly remember sitting in a rink talking to another parent whose kids were playing at the high school level. And they said, listen, you know what, you're not going to make the team, but you want to play the whatever it wasn't the adult league. I think it was the adult league. He says, you know what, you're not going to make the high school hockey team. So you're playing the adult league. We can't afford to buy you $300 sticks anymore. So here's what you can do for like $50. You can get like 2 or 3 wooden sticks at the time. It's like, you're an adult, you got a job, you got to go pay for it. You're going to end up buying those wooden sticks to save the money. And I think it's kind of like, to how much do you want to ride? You don't need to buy a brand new 450. You can go to Craigslist and you can buy a bike that's used, and you can go to the shop, and I'm going to plug Ronnie's. You can go to Ronnie's mail order and get everything you need sent to you to refurbish that bike. And it's like, how much do you want to do it, and what level do you want to do it to? I think that's where my comparison is. And that's where you have to figure out your budget and your costs.
No, I agree. And the bike is just the beginning. I mean,
right.
I'm talking about competitively. If you buy the bike, it doesn't matter if it's $8,000 or $10,000. You're still going to put probably $4,000 in. I'm talking the amateur level.
Yep.
Between suspension, setup.
Yep. Tuning.
Just to get it close, and then now the hour meter starts ticking, and the money pours in.
Yep. And they're not the easiest things in the world to rebuild either. So, I mean, sometimes in my case, I don't even attempt to crack open the 4-stroke. I'll have a guy do it for me, just because I know that, I'll mess it up. I won't get it right. Something will be off. I'll probably drop a few 4-letter words when I'm trying to start it afterwards, and it doesn't fire off. But not like a 2-stroke where it's simple, just a wrist pin bearing and a piston, and you're back together again. Slap that cylinder on and torque her down and fire it up. That's always the fun way to go.
But you can, your bike, if I'm not mistaken, your bike's 4 years old.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. If you're not racing, all the time, or you're not even racing hard, a lot of guys will rebuild the same bikes and they'll ride the same bike 2 and 3 years.
Oh, easily. And your bike's 4 years old, and you're still competitive, Jim. It wouldn't matter. It would. Your lap times.
They're not any different now.
They wouldn't change if you had a brand new bike. And
right.
What I'm saying is, you couldn't do that back in let's say the late '80s, '90s. One season your bike was toast. You needed 3 or 4 to get through a season.
You sure did.
To be a top expert rider, and things have changed. The bikes, you freshen them up, they're still competitive. A bike that's 2-3 years old is still competitive, and I'm not talking on a pro level. I'm talking about
local vet, whatever, youth classes, some of them. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, you same thing. You just hit the nail on the head. You would need 3 bikes. I can remember going through a season on 125s where I need to buy 3 125s to get me through the year. And at that time, I think the 125s were like, I don't know, it was 87, maybe like $1,800, for a 125. And
Yep.
and even still, you're talking to get through. You're spending close to $6,000 in bikes. What's a 250F go for? You know. Granted, there is, like you said, that it's tough because the price goes up. Some of the experts, they do go through a couple of bikes a year, and as Tread said, there's no more free bikes. It's not like it used to be. So they take notes out and try to make their payments, but it's you really got to be dedicated if you want to do it at that level.
Yeah, the industry definitely has changed. There aren't any dealerships looking for tax write-offs, and
No.
not at least that I know of. And back in the day, when there was extra money, you could sponsor a team, and you could give out 4 or 5 bikes,
Yeah,
to one rider. But I don't see that happening now. Yeah, Kurt and Janet McCann had a great program, as you well know.
Yep.
And those days are gone. Those days are definitely gone.
Yeah. You could actually, as the shops went, they would actually have a team of riders as opposed to one or two. Now you might have one or two top name riders out of a shop, or even you look at the shops now. How many people do they sponsor, and where do they put them? What series do they ride? Because you got J-Day, you got NESC, you got even some of the New York rounds. So it's like, who rides what and where? And it's like, sorry guys, I only can afford to help out one guy and give him my full effort in that particular series. But even then, he's not going to get stuff for free because it's just not. It doesn't happen. You can't afford to do it anymore. You still got a business to run.
Like Poacher Series, the New York Off-Road Series, I have more riders out of my shop that I help out in that series, and along with J-Day. And nobody gets a free ride, but we try to help out everybody.
Yep.
But and the people I help out, they're not necessarily the fastest people.
Yeah.
But they're the people that help promote the sport.
Yes.
Whether it's me they're promoting, as well as Poacher or just the sport in general. And this goes back to what we said about the kids and stuff. You got to promote the sport, and the youth is our future. We got to put the time in.
Yep.
And I think Poacher's doing a camp.
He is.
Started doing camps on the Saturday before the races, where he's doing riding clinics.
Yeah, I think he tried it out at the last round that he had for the season. I know that Scott Buxton was gonna go over there and give him a hand, and he had a couple people. They were talking about doing some of the things that we were talking about doing as well. Maybe having like 4 or 5 different stations where people could go through and you could talk to them about different aspects of what they were going to expect during the day. Go from everything from like registration and sign up, teaching them about that, to maybe even tips on riding, on maintenance, stuff like that. I think he's doing something very similar to that, if not that program.
And that's nothing new. I'm talking about the camps. I remember as a kid, 9 years old maybe, Lanesboro, Mass, NESC, Jim Meenan, Spencer Morrison, JoJo Keller. They did a riding school over there, and I was on a YZ 50 or 60, and they had quite the crew that showed up, and everybody was there, and it was from 50s all the way up to 125, 250s.
That's cool. I think it makes a big difference too when it's people that you look up to in a local level, and they actually are approachable. It's not like a superstar in the sport that you couldn't talk to. It's somebody that's willing to take the time and say hello and sit down. I saw an awesome picture today of John Dowd sitting on the back of his toy hauler with another kid just sitting there just talking to him. And it's like, and that's what we needed, is guys like that to handle schools like you just talked about at Lanesboro.
It puts it in perspective. Everybody that's riding, the JoJos and John Dowd. They're people. They're good dudes. They know how to promote just by being them. The people that they are. People want to be. They want to be around cool people that know how to ride. They want to know, feel the same passion. You know what I mean?
I do. The ones that love the sport and they just want to see it, they want to see it grow. They want to spread, they want to share why they love the sport and see other kids start to feel the same type of thing. And that's how, I think that we can really grow the sport is just taking some time and talking to people and sharing it. I mean, even now with the guys in the group, it's just been phenomenal seeing how many people are connecting and talking to each other. And then you start to see things like, kids and grandkids getting involved in riding. And I think that's great. Somebody who's been away from the sport for so long, all of a sudden they find the passion again. They love it. And they're getting their grandson a bike, and it's cool to see stuff like that.
It is amazing. And again, I took so much time off and hid behind that desk with a pen in my hand and just got a different perspective of racing and learning. People will be like, oh, my kids, we're going to Redlands this year. And I'm like, that's awesome. Congrats. And never said a word. I've been there about 8 times.
Well,
but I knew what they were going through. You could see it. And I used to call it when the parents would come in, a disease, because they were hooked.
Oh, yeah.
But it was the healthiest thing in the world to see a family just, the families would come in and buying bikes, and they get wrapped right up in it and stick with it, and the whole family did it. It was amazing to watch. And again, I just sat there, and I never got involved until probably about 5 years ago when I started talking about, hey, I used to race. I know what that's like.
Yeah, you did? How do you know that? And then you tell them, well, there was this little thing called the grand champion.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely, I mean, and you coming from a racing family, even my wife, Marie, her family, same thing. My family, both of us, we all raced. All the kids raced, in all of our families. So what it was like. And granted, I know that you guys and Marie and her family, they did make the trip to Loretta's a couple of times and put it in. We didn't really we just kind of stayed local. But the commitment that, the parents make to go and to get kids to the races is just, it's incredible. And it's great to see people that just absolutely love doing it, and they love doing it together. It's family time for them.
It is. And, I'm going to bring my kids back into this. So I have the 3 kids, and they all do different things. And me and my wife have to go in different directions. And
yeah,
with the race family, you're there. You're there on the weekends. You have an extended family when you get to the track.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are sticking together.
Yep.
And I'm not saying sports are bad, but that family atmosphere in NEMA really, really, when I was a kid anyway, you get to the track and it was like, oh man, you got a new set of friends that are there all the time.
Yep.
You knew what to expect. The motorhomes would show up and the BMX bikes came out. You had a blast. And it didn't matter what you were doing.
Right. The fun started. Everybody knew everybody, and it was just kind of like, what? We goof around on Saturday, and then on Sunday the gate drops, and that's where you settle your differences, was on the track, not in the pits or anywhere else.
When I was a kid and the bikes would fire up on Sunday morning, then my heart would start pumping, and I get the jitters.
Yep.
And I just turned 48 last month, and when I'm at the track now or whatever I'm doing and the bikes start firing up, I get those same jitters.
Yep, you get those butterflies in your stomach, and you're like, all of a sudden you turn and going, all right, is it time for me to go down the line yet? Where's my moto? Did I get oh crap, I got to set my goggles up. It's like, do I have enough time? What did I do? I mean, now we don't have to worry about it. Is your gas on? Did I leave a rag in the airbox, or in Tred's case, is it full of dog food? That was a good story.
I heard that story. That is hilarious.
That was a good story. I loved how he ended it with, when my dad finally got it fired up, the dog food came flying out of the muffler.
I almost think I remember that, and I think I was there. I'm not sure.
I'm surprised nobody called him like Kibble after that or something. That's your nickname, you're Kibble. But
well, with his luck, he would have had a major dog food sponsor back then.
he would have been the first Blue Buffalo sponsored rider. Oh man. Hey John Levesque says great job to you, and Gary Frank says he did not have a lot of money. He says his dad used electrical tape for the number. He thinks, but now he shared that picture the other day of jumping that quad and I hope I get it right. It was Lunenburg, right?
It was.
Okay, so he was jumping the quad at Lunenburg, and I think it was Lee Helliwell had just started doing it, and Gary's still in the air coming down. And it's just like, oh my God. Lee's on a sleeve down RM125 with full suspension, and Gary's on that YZ100 with god awful, like, 5 inches of suspension travel on the YZ100, and he's doing that jump. It's just like, oh, how did you not break that bike in half?
That class, and I tell Gary this all the time, when there was a gate drop for Gary, I was glued right to the fence.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching those guys more than they know. I knew exactly what they were going to do. And, my brother Mike was out there with them. So,
mm-hmm.
Of course, I was going to watch. But at Lunenburg, when that started happening, the way they were jumping, we never saw that before. And Gary had a style to him that was amazing.
Yeah.
His bike was sideways. The throttle was pinned. And he was chasing Lee on a 125, and we never really knew if that was sleeve down or not, but I'm sure it was because Lee's awesome.
Yeah.
That competition was amazing in that class. And then I watched him move and transition into NASC, all of them. And that was amazing to watch, too, because now it wasn't just 4 or 5 guys. It was, 40 of them out there hanging.
When we speak about Gary and the style, so New Jersey Motocross, I've been following them on New Jersey MX Park, and they shared a picture today of, I think it was Englishtown. They shared a picture of, I think it was Billy Lyles back in 1982 on a KX250 hitting a jump, and he was kind of like leaned over with that, the body English to the upside, kind of like a half cross up because you knew a corner or something was coming, and the number on it was 119. Now, in 1983, Gary was riding a KX250. He was number 114 in NESC in the expert class, and he's doing the same exact thing over a jump at Southwick. Opposite way, but the same style, with the bike kind of leaned over, his body English opposite way, just kind of like tossing the bike down to throw it down in the landing. And I made a comment about, wow, look at that style, and it's like, you got a style like that. I mean, look where Billy Lyles, how fast was he? Billy Lyles was ridiculously cool, and Gary, same way. Gary was just unbelievably fast. I can't tell you, you're not the only person that told me that he was the guy to watch in NEMA. Everybody would go to the fence and watch Gary Frank, and my only regret was I didn't meet him until after he quit racing, and he was on that, he was doing the tractors, the mud boggers with the alcohol blown motors and stuff in them. That was pretty cool in itself, but I had no idea that, he was as fast as he really was.
He was. And we used to bring, when our motorhome would leave our house, we'd usually bring a kid from a friend of mine or my brother's friend, and they'd get to see all the racing, and they always picked out Gary as well. Oh my God, did you see Gary Frank? And I'm like, yeah. So during a week, I'd be riding a BMX bike, and I'd do a cross up. I'm like, did I look like Gary Frank?
Gary, I know you're watching right now, so you were the guy. I can keep telling you that until I'm blue in the face. Sooner or later, you're going to believe it.
I hope he's wearing that helmet.
That helmet's awesome. That helmet was awesome. We're going to have to get him on a green bike. Maybe I'll have to get him on that KX250 this year and let him turn a few laps with the helmet on just so that it matches.
Well, he's supposed to be my next Team Green rider, so he's going to have to step it up. Well, if it has to be yellow, we'll make it yellow just so he feels better. But we're going to have to get him on a Cowie.
We'll put yellow plastics on it for him.
Yes. Well, hey, that's happened before.
Yeah.
I believe it was John Dowd had a full Suzuki ride, but back in the day, he was riding a KX 125 I believe in '88,
Yep.
And the bike was all yellow except for the gas tank because you couldn't get a yellow gas tank.
Well, hey, I'm going to point out one thing. We just went to Red Bull Straight Rhythm, and AJ Cat did the Travis Pastrana. What do they call it? They honor him, and he built the bike to be a replica of a Travis Pastrana bike. He was riding a KTM 125, and you would have sworn it was an RM 125 when you're looking at it, just by the way that they did such a good job reproducing and the look of an RM 125. And here it was, Orange Brigade. It was a KTM, but that was super cool.
It was. So today I chimed in on a post, and I'm not sure they were picking on Suzuki's, and I made a comment about a Suzuki, and I won't get into details, but I had a nerve with Gary, and he said he was surprised that I said it, and Gary, I'm sorry.
Well, for us old guys, I think when you start talking about bikes and this one and that one, and I think it stems back to the days when we were younger and we were kids and the bikes were so different. I mean, I can seriously remember my brother, when we started, he was racing a Honda. He had a used Honda 125 and 83 CR 125, and I had the 83 KX 125. And I remember there was a bumper sticker going around, and it said something like, "I'd rather eat worms than ride a Honda." And I mean, it just that stuff sticks with you. For me, I was always a Kawasaki guy, and even now Hank likes to poke fun at Suzuki's and say, no excuse for Suzuki ownership. I'm like, come on, man. They're good bikes. They're all really good bikes. And anybody could ride any of them and probably be competitive,
I think you're right. I was a Yamaha guy. I was born a Yamaha guy.
Yep.
I woke up in the morning, put my feet on the floor. It was a tuning fork Yamaha rug.
Yeah.
I think I was 3 years old. And 1983, I think, was the first year that Cowie came out with a KX60, and it was hands down the bike to have. And
yep.
All of a sudden, the garage turned green.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. You go through different phases, with manufacturers like that. Look at now. What was it? It's been a couple of years now for the YZ65, but the second that thing hit the floors, when Yamaha put it out, that was like the bike. It was definitely competitive, and I remember the magazine saying it was better than the existing KTM and Husqvarna's. So I didn't see too many of them. I had been out of it at that point, but manufacturers do that. I mean, in Kawasaki with those KXs was just, back then, it was the bike. You had gone through the sea of yellow, like 82, 83. When the RM 125 and the RM 250 were the bikes, and everybody was riding them on the gate, and then it shifted, and then it became green and finally red, and it's amazing to watch and see it evolve. I mean, if you had said to any one of us back then that KTM was going to be the dominant manufacturer, 20 years from then, we would have all been like, no way. And look at what happened. I mean, they just put the effort into it and put the bikes out.
I think it starts with the program at the amateur level. The Kawasaki,
yeah.
I think in 82, was it 82? The Team Green program came out.
Yes.
And they made a strong presence. They were at the track. They had a semi. They had their support vans, and drop Jeff Chambers as one of the more notable, I think, Northeast techs that would drive around in the support van, and they helped out everybody.
Oh yeah,
it
didn't matter
what you were riding. They helped you out.
Yep. Heck, even now, I mean, look at a few years ago when Jack Camellia was riding Hondas, and he was down at the Mini-O's in Florida. He needs some help. He's actually got the picture of the Kawasaki guys working on his Honda for him, with him sitting on it. I think in his podium speech for wherever he finished in the class, he actually thanked Monster Energy Kawasaki for helping him fix his bike. It's like, that's cool that, those guys do that. It doesn't matter what you're riding. They jump in and they try to help you out.
No, it's a tight-knit community. I think everybody at the track helps each other out in a local level, but that's what makes the sport great.
Yep. Joe Orlando said his 82 air-cooled KX smoked all the liquid-cooleds. They did those things. They had some motors. They had some motors on those bikes.
I remember the year, I'm going to drop more names here, the year that, and I'm going back to mini cycles, so Kawasaki came out with the KX80 in 83.
Yep.
And we were all on Yamahas in NEMA, and the Yamaha was a competitive bike. And a couple of people that I was battling with went to Kawasaki. And it wasn't even fair. I couldn't catch a cold. I mean, they were gone.
Yeah, that was that water cooled. They hit that water cooled 80 that year, which was, I think that was the first time. No, Yamaha had YZ had a water cooled one, but it wasn't quite the same as the Kawasaki.
It didn't handle as good. Didn't have the suspension. So
yeah,
midway through the season, I turned full Cowie in '83, and we went to our practice track, and I talked to my dad. I'm like, Dad, when did you groom the track? He says, I didn't. And the bike handled that good. It just was a game changer.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of that stuff, to see the evolution of different steps, with the bikes as we grew up, we didn't necessarily know it back then as we were going through it. But now when you stop and you look back and you're like, wow, that was incredible. That was such a crazy time for the development of motorcycles.
Yeah, it was. It was happening quick. And I think it's easy to look back, but I think things were happening quicker back then. There was more things coming through the pipeline. And, as far as game changers go, compared to now, I mean, as we said earlier, you can ride a bike that's 4 years old and still be competitive at a local level.
Right. You couldn't then.
If you had a bike that was 3 years old back then, you didn't count.
No.
Unless you were a freak. There was a few of them out there.
there was a few freaks out there. But you know what, though? I mean, even for us, we would beat up bikes, and you couldn't make them last the whole year. You'd break frames, you'd break shocks, you'd break, you name it, it broke. And you were always rebuilding everything during the season. Even the guys that were the easiest on bikes would end up having cracked and broken frames. Just because they couldn't take the punishment. Everything else was becoming so good. The motors, the shocks were absorbing all this big hits, and the frame hadn't evolved enough yet to be able to handle the rest of the bike. So they would just fall apart on us.
I just had a memory pop up, and I'm pretty sure we were at Southwood, Mass, and I'm pretty sure it was Gary Frank, and I think he broke a frame. And my dad was one of the few that had acetylene torches in the truck and welding supplies. And if I'm not mistaken, whoever was trying to put his bike back together was airplane mechanics, because they had mechanics wire, they had everything trying to pull the frame back together.
Oh, man. Well,
I hope he's listening. He can correct me on that, but that just popped up.
Yep. Well, even Tread the other night was saying he was one of the only people that drove around in the '90 season with a welder in his trailer, because he would break the frame on his KXs all the time. That first year of the perimeter frame, they were so stiff that they just cracked, and he always struggled with it. But I'm glad that that's kind of a thing of the past now. I mean, you see frames break once in a while, but it's not like everybody's checking it for cracks after every single moto.
No, and I think with the aluminum frames, if you did crack when you're done.
Yeah. I've seen a couple when they break. It's really ugly. I do have to say, Murph broke a frame on a KX 125 at Middleborough, and that wasn't a pretty picture. I remember that back in '84 in the 125 amateur class. He kind of like came over the Finkel-Day doubles, and the bike just sat in the ground when he landed. It was ugly.
Why they ever called that a double, I'll never know. But that was a launch pad.
We were talking about that at the rider reunion, and John Gorman tried to make it and took an ambulance ride that same day. But Fink ended up, the day that he did it, he cleared it, landed, and I believe he broke some vertebrae in his back by just doing the jump, and it's just like, man, you made it and you broke your back.
Yeah, I never never witnessed anybody doing that jump, but if they did, I would guess that they either cased it or flat landed it. I don't know if there was ever, when they were first put in, a landing.
Yeah, and I mean,
maybe
it's funny though, because you look at stuff now, and things are like twice as big as that, and kids are jumping them, you know, and you're just looking at them going, "What is wrong with you guys?"
In the year, probably the season of '84, I was 12 years old, and back then they didn't have a 80cc. They had one class. It was 7 to 11 for the younger kids, but then it went from 12 to 16.
Oof.
So I'm riding with Chris Fisher. I'm riding with probably Tread and David Antonucci and D'Onofrio and that group. And I'm the young guy. And after the Finkel Day doubles, they had a set of doubles after the left-hand turn.
Oh, they sure did.
And I wasn't doing them. And I was as fast as those guys, but, you know, I could run top 5, and I'll never forget. So I decided I'm going to do it. Well, I did it, and I went straight up. I did a Ronnie Matt, came straight down, fell off the bike, ran to my bike, and I'm kicking and kicking and kicking. It's not starting. It sounds weird. I came down so hard I knocked the carburetor off the intake poop. So
well, that was a crazy jump.
It was, and you know, I learned after that. I learned how to jump after that because it cost me dearly, mechanically and physically. I popped the carb on and ended up finishing the race. But point being is, straight up, straight down, it took its toll.
Yes. Well, you know, and it's funny too because they made that jump. The takeoff jump was like, it was a lot smaller than the one that you were trying to jump up and over. And, you know, when you had to hit it at speed, jumps like that are fine if it's kind of like a pop thing where you're popping up and over the bigger one, but it wasn't. You had to hit it at speed and it like launched you. So, I mean, people were getting carted off in the track left and right on that jump. It was insane. I had fun. I finally did it. I think I raced the whole season as a 125 novice in NESC. And then my dad somehow talked to Sean O'Hara's dad and said, you got to come down and try the one-time free ride at NEMA. So we went to Middleborough and we tried it, and I was a 125 novice, and I started jumping it that day. I was way out in front in the novice class. I think I turned amateur in NESC the next week, but it was just one of those deals like, wow, this thing is – I haven't been doing this all year. What's wrong with me, you know?
Yeah, no, that was new, and probably I will call it the mid '80s. To do a double jump and do it correctly was something new, at least at the mini cycle level, and it was scary because the jumps weren't quite manufactured as they are now.
Right.
Where, you know, you go to these tracks, you go to MX23. Dan does a fantastic job. It's safe if you don't make it. It's relatively safe. Even Echo Valley.
They've got the angles down right too to get over them. You know, back then it was just like, okay, let's put a couple of piles of dirt on the ground and we'll call it a double.
It's a double.
Yep. It's like, oh yeah, that you guys can jump that, right? Oh yeah, maybe. But let's try like shaping it. Nah, you don't need to shape it. It's going to get torn up anyway. Joe Orlando says he's seen Finkelday destroy rear rims. He was an animal. Yes, he was, Joe. Finkelday he destroyed bikes. I saw Randy McCann destroy a wheel on a KX 500 one time. That was interesting. Took most of the moto, but I think he made it with like 4 spokes left at the end of the moto somehow. You know, the wheel was ready to fall off the bike. It was ugly.
That's funny. Back in the day, date myself. So 1982.
Yep.
They didn't call it Mini O's, but it was a Mini Olympics.
Yes.
In Florida on the moto track. They had a jump, and I watched my brother destroy a rear rim on I'm going to say a YZ100, and that was unheard of back then. It just was. The things, you know, if they came apart, there was usually signs of it going to happen.
Yeah,
you know?
there was a problem breaking. The rim might have been cracked or something beforehand, and you were still riding. It didn't happen from just a single landing or a single shot, you know?
Well, that just proved that was the sport evolving
Yeah.
quickly.
Yep. It was the materials. It was everything else. I just saw the other day. I saw that ad. I don't know if you remember it, for the 1983 YZ125, where they put it up on a scale, and that's what Yamaha put it out. I think it tipped the scale at 197 pounds dry, and they said, this is the lightest motorcycle made to date, and that was great. Everything was great because the bike was awesome in the ads, but then when they got on the track, everything started breaking because the materials and the light, how they designed it, it couldn't handle the stress of motocross. So the bikes were just breaking every time people raced them.
That was the age of the I think it was called the Z spoke.
Yes.
It was a one piece spoke that it was actually two spokes that laced through the hub. That didn't last very long.
Nope. And even then, even the spokes back then, some of them had the 90-degree angle on them when, they would go through the hub, and then you almost have to hook them in. And those were weak too. It wasn't like a straight pull. I remember straight pull spokes came out, and that was a big thing that it strengthened the wheels up considerably.
Yep. I know my dad got really good at lacing up wheels.
Well, we all had that tendency to turn the side of the rim. You'd hit a rock and the side of the rim would be like flat, Damn it, he did it again. I could see the bead of the tire. That's not good. So, all right, before we let you go and before we end it, what do you got going on at Ronnie's? Anything good?
Yeah, I got a ton of inventory that it's trickling out.
Nice.
And I can't lay it on any one color of bike. But right now it seems to be blue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping a few programs come up and Kawasaki's will start ripping out again.
Yeah. I rode the 2020 450. That's a very, very, very good motorcycle, that KX.
Yeah, no, I love that bike. I had a 19, and unfortunately, I'm just not in shape to hang on to it very long. But I think I'm going to give it another try for 2020.
I'm with you. 450s are a tough one, but if there was one that I would pick, I'm home. You know me. I'm at home on green. So.
Me too.
I love my KTM 350, but if I ever had to replace it, I would probably go with the KX 450 just because I just like the green. It's like we talked before. You sit on the bike and you look out and you're looking at a green fender and you feel like this is home.
Yeah, it could be the worst bike in the world.
Yep.
But when it feels right, and it doesn't matter what color you're looking at and what color feels right, it's what you're used to, it's what you're comfortable with. And
right.
There's been a lot of flack about Suzuki's, and sorry, Gary Frank and Steve Violette, but Suzuki's, they're a great bike.
So they are. They are.
They are. I had a RMC 250.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yep. I just shared a picture of one that I had. I had a 14 that I rode for a little while, an RMZ 250, and I fell in love with the bike and riding again. It was just phenomenal. I haven't had that much fun. I hadn't had that much fun on a motorcycle in a long time, and it got me hooked again. It definitely got me hooked again. And you know what? So what? They got a kicker. It is what it is. Maybe they haven't made much changes to it. Look at the YZ 250 two-stroke. It's been essentially the same since 2005, but it is one hell of a fun motorcycle.
Yep, and I have plenty of those. I think with YZ 250s, I could hold a full gate.
Well, there you go. We'll have to start thinking about swapping over to, get the 32-1 crowd will absolutely love it. I see Dave and Gary are going back and forth in the comment section. Interesting. But anyway, so no, that's good. I know you guys have got some sleds going out, and I mean, yeah, the snow's probably going to be melting up there with the rain the next day or so, but it'll be back.
It is. It'll come back, and our Ski-Doo sales, they're amazing. We have 10 minutes away from the shop. We got Woodford Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
They usually ride till about April.
Yep.
The snowmobile guys are no different than dirt bike guys. Same people.
Yep.
They're into it. I think Leo Photo. I haven't heard from him, but he's he's got to be riding sleds somewhere right now.
Oh yeah. After seeing the damage and destruction he did on his last year, I should message him and say, hey, why don't you go see John, see if he can get you hooked up with a new one.
Yeah, and I hope he's listening, because I'm not going to take anything he has in on trade, because it's got to be destroyed.
He had that skid frame welded up in I don't know how many places last winter on that Canadian trip, and he's like, I just got to get through another week. Oh man.
Yeah, that was bad. The rails on that sled they looked like the lines in the road. Somebody was swerving.
Hey, Dave Dale says, going back to the Suzuki holds the longest record for the bold new graphics on the RMZ 450 18-year run. Well, that's true. But the thing is, I don't even understand why bikes come with graphics anymore, because everybody puts their own on them, and the stock ones are such a pain in the ass to get off. They rip apart in little tiny pieces. It's like, God, what? Just send the bike like a blank canvas and let people put it whatever the hell they want on them.
I agree.
Maybe Suzuki's onto something,
I think they are, and
forward
if I'm not
thinking.
mistaken, they got a new team.
They do.
Up, right?
They have even with the JGR guys, I don't know how much help they're throwing them, but they just signed Freddie Noren and Jimmy Dakotas back to ride, so that's the Suzuki. I'm going to say Suzuki factory team. It's definitely the team that Suzuki is putting their support behind in the United States, and they're not racing motocross in Europe. So, but to have a couple more guys on the team, that means some things must have gone well, and they got the bikes, they got the motors. Hey, they know how to build them, they know how to race them. Freddie looked really good on the bike. Southwick and the Nationals he rode. I mean, the guy earned national number 31, and he had been out of the Nationals for 3 or 4 rounds. So they got to be a decent bike if the guys are out there competing and they're finishing up in the top 10.
All the manufacturers need the competition, because it's kind of like this. What would the Yankees be without the Red Sox, and vice versa?
Right.
Just not to throw sports in there, but
it's true.
Competition is good. We all need it, and
yep.
Everything that you buy now is competitive. It's all what you make of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. If you don't have people and companies pushing each other, then what do you got? You don't have anything. All right, man.
For sure.
Well, I do appreciate it. We're a little over an hour in now, so time goes fast when you start talking moto.
I didn't know I could talk that long.
I always say I don't know how much material I have to talk about, and then an hour later we're still laughing about stuff and looking at things, and I'm reading the comments, and it's crazy when you see it happening. Dave just commented, why is the KX250 still not in my living room? It's a total letdown, he says. Well, sooner or later, I'll get like Zoom. When I get Zoom, the meeting software, I can bring people on with me. I'll use Zoom to do the live stuff, and they let you put a picture in the background. I could use my KX250 as a picture. But Dave, look, I have this right here, this first place vet, plaque that's sitting behind me. So I got something. There's a green bike on. Eli Tomac's pictured on that thing, so there's a green bike on there. But anyway, Suzuki is helping HEP Motorsports, Gary said. So
nice.
That's one of the other team. So anyway.
Well, the other benefit, I think I saw this today, that I think Steve V posted that that group that's stealing all the bikes aren't stealing them.
Yeah. So, well, see what's going on. I mean, that's a whole nother topic to talk about, is bike thefts. Oh.
Well, I thought that was funny and sad at the same time, because of people stealing bikes, but
they're not taking Suzuki's.
It was just a poke, and it's all good.
I didn't get it right away. I got it now. Oops, the concussions. Sorry, guys. Well, that's because their kids stealing them and they don't know how to kick. It's like kids don't know how to drive a stick shift.
Right.
No button to push. Anyway, all right. So, anything else you want to throw in there before we go? Anything you want to throw on before we go?
No, I'm good. I think we covered it all, and I
Cool.
appreciate the call. And
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad that you came on.
I hope everybody enjoyed it, and talk to you guys soon.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night, John. Bye.
You too.
All right, guys. So that was John Levesque, Ronnie Cycles. I do want to throw a mention out there. It's a couple weeks before Christmas. Ronnie's mail order. If you go on Facebook, they actually have their own page. You can give them a call. You can have stuff sent to you. Look it up. Whatever you got to do. Ronnie Cycles of Bennington. Check that out. All right, so let me look at a few of the comments here. Dave Taylor, millennials, yes, they need to push the button. Hey, I need to push the button. As I showed, I cannot kickstart a CR 500 very well, if at all. Frank versus Korea, I don't know how that's going. Gary, you love hearing John's stories except when he mentions you. Sorry, dude, you were a popular guy. Let's scroll back up a little bit. Joe Orlando with a 73 Bull Taco. I would love to see that bike. That's something that you need to bring out to Rewind, Joe. That would be a fantastic bike. Dave shared it to New York Off-Road. Thanks, Dave. Oops. I can't believe I did that the other day. That's about it, guys. I really don't have too much. I do want to throw a special shout out to the guys in my mountain bike community. We're having the what we hope to have the first season ending party. Tomorrow is the Christmas party. It's for the mountain bike, moto, and off-road community down at the studios by Federal Hills Home Theaters, and that's down at 3 Bridle Ave in West Warwick. We rented the place from 5 to 10 tomorrow night. It's a potluck style dinner. So I shouldn't say dinner. It's a potluck style thing. So please bring your favorite dish. There is a bar there that they serve beer. I think they serve beer and wine. I'm not positive. I know that they don't have mixed drinks yet. I don't believe. But anyway, it's the Studios by FHHT, Federal Hills Home Theater. Matt Lucetti and his crew are going to be hosting us. And in lieu of a ticket, we're going to put out a donation box and ask that you guys would consider a donation to help us cover the cost of renting and cleanup of the event. But we want everybody to come and have a great time. You're all welcome to come down, stop by, join us, have a blast. Speaking of mountain bikes, I did ride last night with my normal crew in the snow at Foxborough. Studded tires, lights. What an absolute blast that was. I'm definitely hooked on the mountain bikes, and I can thank a couple people for that. I could thank Bob Boucher, who told me that once I started riding, I would love it. Bob, you're 100% right. Eric Susi and Jeff DeBellis, who told me that when I got a new bike, I would definitely not want to do anything but mountain bike. And you guys are pretty much spot on with that. And then more recently, as the days got shorter, Joe French said, get lights. Well, we did, and we are having an absolute blast out there riding once a week in the night. So that's about all I got tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody checking us out and watching. The comments, I love it. You guys are on there. I would love to have more people come on with me when I do the Friday night. It was supposed to just be a half an hour, but we run a little bit long sometimes. So no big deal. And what I would love to do is have you guys come on and talk about some of the stuff that's going on, during the week. I know we had a couple things this week, but we didn't really, talk too much about them. But no worries. We'll next Friday we'll touch on those. And as usual, Tuesday nights, the last lap. David Daler and myself, we host that. We try to have a guest on and do a little roast session, maybe talk some moto with whoever it is. We had Tread on last week. Don't have anybody lined up yet for this Tuesday, but I'm sure that we'll get something going. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great night, and have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.